Hi, welcome again. Gosha here, or welcome for the first time in my show, if that's the first time you're listening to me. Today I want to be talking about specializing and becoming a great at something and the very counterintuitive thing that is related to this. I'm sure you have heard a lot of advice talking about how you should specialize at something, whether that's your career or maybe growing into some sort of niche when you have a business, or even developing some sort of really specialization in like sharing your gifts as a human being, whether that's in relationships or just generally, like, wherever you apply these skills or gifts or tendencies. And in general, like, it could be something that I'm not disagreeing with, but there are really big problems when it comes to this. It is obvious that each of us has a sort of gift at something. You might have natural tendency or a developed skill that made you better than other people in something. And generally these are great, and we grow into having and developing these skills through different means. And that will weave in through the problems that I will be discussing in the second part of this video. But first I wanted to share with you a story that is really a great illustration for being able to see how problematic narrowing down to specialization of any kind can be. So maybe some of you know, or you don't know yet, I had a mind, body, soul healing business that was specifically addressing chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic pains that women were struggling with, and we were going through mind body healing. I was teaching them to heal their body, and they were doing this. It was because of my experience of healing my body using the power of mind, rewiring the responses, the inner unconscious responses that are going on in subconscious mind body system, and rewiring these things into health and vitality. And within the matter of 3 months, they were able to see huge results, as in like healing chronic disease that all the medical system have given up on, and they were just completely helpless. So long story short, the results I was offering were spectacular. I had really perfected and mastered this ability to know what was going on, whether that were beliefs, whether that were skills they were applying that I was teaching them, and kind of troubleshooting through the process to really making huge progress in a very short amount of time, until many of them were able to heal, and most of them made like really almost miraculous progress in something that was so persistently present in their life. Okay, I'm not here to brag. I'm here to illustrate something that maybe in your own life that has happened. So you become great at something, and it's just really something that's working like a well-oiled machine. And you are proud, you're serving these people, and this is like, on surface, it works great. You might get money, you might get some success, you might get really happy clients, and you might get a sort of status that comes with it as well. So there is a lot of levels of things that on surface are working really great, right? It's just like, what else? What else is there, right? So let's put it this way. Let's summarize it this way. Everything was working great. Money was good, status was good, clients were happy, but there was one element that underneath all this greatness, amazingness, and fantastically thriving business was going on, was bubbling up to my awareness. And I'm a very uncompromising person in wanting more, wanting better, wanting things to be more aligned. So when there comes an opportunity for me to see any sort of nuance that would make me question and challenge the status quo, I would do it. Unless I don't see something and I'm in denial about something, then obviously I can't see it. But when I'm able to see, when reality especially brings something to my attention in maybe some sort of small dissatisfaction, some sort of small emotional inkling that something is growing dissatisfied in me, then I would rather look at it at this moment rather than waiting until more things start breaking. Okay. And there came this moment right there and then when I was growing some sort of inner dissatisfaction, some sort of draining feeling that was coming up in serving some kind of customers, some kind of clients that were coming to me. And they were all getting great results, but there were this kind of relational disagreement that was only available to me to see and observe after a longer period of work together. And I didn't want to engage in those dynamics anymore. I thought there must be something in me that is attracting these clients. And I thought about this, and that prompted me to see that all that I was doing was really great for so many things. I was excellent at what I was doing, but the dissatisfaction and misalignment that was mirrored to me through those client relationships made me see that it was not really excellent for me anymore. So as much as my business grew quite fast, it became successful really fast. Also, it brought me a lot of growth. I believe having a business, owning a business, and being an ambitious person and growing some sort of project perhaps, it's really something that makes our consciousness grow in the speed of light. It really brings up so many opportunities for our consciousness to be faced with so many challenges that we cannot not see them if we want to be in alignment with us and if we want to grow whatever that project we're developing. So we are being faced with sort of things like maybe rejections from clients. Maybe we are being faced with some sort of lacks in maybe some competencies that we miss, or some sort of insecurities that we still have to tackle, maybe some limitations in our beliefs and storylines, and we have to deal with that in the way that is congruent with the state of consciousness we want to be in. So essentially the takeaway from this story is not everything that you're great at, that's working and that's bringing you a lot of success, is great for you. Be careful in working and pursuing and mastering and pushing more what you're great at, because you might risk being stuck in what you're great at. Okay? I really want you to digest it right now. I'm just gonna take a moment in let's pause and let's breathe into what I just said, okay? This is really heavy because we have all been kind of brainwashed into pursuing this sort of specialization that will put us on this pedestal as this amazing person that can do, that gets to do this amazing thing, that is this super master at offering or serving or being that role that they've mastered, okay? But what about life that keeps pushing our evolution? What about our inner development that is happening over and over again, especially if you are in business? You cannot not develop, especially as a conscious woman, okay? So I want to bring up 3 problems that are very distinct and that were very distinct to me in when I was journaling about this, when I was thinking and reflecting about this specialization and how that plays into our lives as human beings. Because let's put it this way, we are not here to serve the business. We are not here to serve our career. We are not here placed to serve the relationships. We are put here so that these things serve us. And we get to play in our world. We get to play in our life with all these things, juggle these things, change, play around, experiment. So we are not slaves to them, but they are here to serve us. So let me bring up the 3 very distinct problems that I see in specialization that you will be able to hear, digest, see how that applies in whatever you're doing, and maybe find an alternative. And at the end, I will also, suggest some sort of alternatives, if you will. And before I get into the actual problems, I want to really, really emphasize the background context for you to remember throughout the rest of this video and the insights I drop in here. The world and our life is organized through the cycles of changes, through the evolution of the different states, changing constantly one into another. There cannot be a situation that is constant all over through the time. You cannot reach a certain state and expect to stay in that state. And this is the main mistake in reasoning that makes people perfect, specialize, and want to stay in that situation. Okay, let's go to the problem number 1 that is super distinct, that makes people suffer by specializing in a certain situation, whatever that is, work situation, life situation. This problem number 1 is over-identifying with what you have specialized at. So in my situation, it could be if I had grown more into specializing into this offering, I would grow over-identified with what I was giving. And for you, it could be you have a role maybe in your workplace, or if you have a business and you specialize and you become great at it, like you master it. Everything is just flawless, right? And there comes a certain level of status with it, right? So you become essentially the role that you play. So you over-identify with what it is. You over-identify with the doing of it. You gather the sense of value, your own value, to what you're offering. You become that what you do. And this is a big trap, because let's put it this way, you are not the set of skills. You are not your business. You are not your role in a relationship. You are doing these things, but there is a whole spectrum of your humanity that is well beyond this. And you want to cultivate all different ways you are being and expressing yourself, rather than just narrowing your own life into something that maybe you offer as in business, right? And I want you to remember the fact that as much as we all have our individual gifts, that we all have tendencies and talents, and we have passions to do certain things over the others. The whole idea of specializations, to the degree that we see it today extremely in our world, is the evolution that comes from the industrialization of society, industrialization of a human being into being and serving through that efficiently specialized role that will be more productive, that will be more efficient, that will bring more money to whoever was their boss, to the economy. So I want you to really keep that in mind, that by obsessing about these things, you are still fueling that concept that was kind of from top down indoctrinated and brainwashed us into adopting as human beings. And yes, as much as you have natural talents, as much as you have natural passions, as much as you have skills that you've developed that you love to cultivate, I want you to identify with being a human as a priority. You get to be a smarter woman. You get to be a woman that is led by alignment, by her heart, by courage, not by fear and clinging to something that you have built or maybe developed or produced already, and identifying with this. You're not a hammer, okay? And especially in today's changing world, this is like full of opportunity to reinvent the ways we show up, to reinvent the ways we collaborate, to reinvent the ways we want things to work, as opposed to the old structures that are evidently crumbling anyway. So there is no use and there is no excuse to be fueling them with our precious life energy no longer than they have to be. You get to make your own choices. You get to fulfill your mission and vision of the way you want things to be, in a more playful, more creative, more humane way of being. Any rigidity, as in over-identification, always will lead to strain, to force, and eventually to crisis, either stagnation or crisis, and I will get to it in the third point. The second problem in specializing in all those ways that I just explained to you is that oftentimes maybe the work kind of scenarios, the work roles, or the careers we choose, or the business we decide to set up as, are the extension of what we were either playing in relationships, especially in our original relationships, in our original primary family, or the deficits, the things that we didn't get. And we play out these situations in the adult life in trying to get and kind of complete the circle of the things that we were maybe not given as children, and trying to get it unconsciously through business. So maybe a child was not feeling seen enough, a girl was not getting enough attention when I was a child, and she started painting. She started drawing, because this is when she got attention, right? And that was her way of getting sort of equivalent of love. And she grows into adult person, she cultivates this painting skills and all that, and unconsciously what she's doing, she's locking herself in pleasing and finding love from people that she didn't get from her parents, maybe unconditionally as she would like to. Obviously, this is what we all need. But our journey of life wants us to become more than just replaying these original wounds. And this is oftentimes what happens in business. So many healers, so many coaches are trying to save the world because this is what they were doing to their mommy and daddy. Okay? I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings. I'm sorry if that brings up something that you might have not seen. That was originally part of my journey as well. But then I was able to see that, a sort of codependent relationships with people, the need to save and fix and help, as this little girl did in her family, is what really is motivating so many businesses that grown women are starting. So please do reflect if there is any element of this sort of, I have to fix how people feel, I have to take care of other people's emotions, I am responsible for saving the world through the clients and working with customers or whatever kind of relationships. This is really important for you to look at this and be able to free yourself from that role, because you are not responsible for saving other people. You don't have to start being selfish. That's not what I'm offering here. But you can live for yourself and radiate service and help from a fully resourced yourself by not defining your worth and yourself, your value, by the amount of help and saving and fixing that you do. And the third problem with specialization is that as we want to narrow down, and then when we have narrowed down and specialized and we become great at it and we cling to it, on the other side, as I maybe just weaved in, there comes the level of invested emotion, and there grows also fear of losing it. So with everything that we've invested in so much, there grows this sort of fear of change that, you've cultivated maybe some way of this success existing, and you're afraid of it to decrease. Okay? But as I've already given you this background thought, everything is in flux. Everything is changing all the time. This is the law of energy. There is nothing that exists stagnant and static. Everything is constantly changing into one and into another, and it's in the constant wheel of changes and cycles all of the time. So clinging on to something that you've developed, specialized at, and maybe you've grown some levels of success and mastery, at any point you have to be willing to let it change, digest it into something else. I'm not saying you have to break it apart and let it go every time you've built something. I will just give you a sort of alternative to how that can look like and how that should look like if you want to honor and respect the natural cycles of life and creation. But you must acknowledge that level of investment that happens when you mastered some specialty that you wanted to master, and that level of fear that comes in it when you choose unconsciously through all those emotions, through this unconscious fear, and you choose to cling to it. What's happening? You are denying these cycles that are naturally asking of you to evolve. And as you deny the flow of life, you are denying the life itself. This is what makes so many women anxious when they want to avoid making mistakes, when they want to avoid changes because they cannot predict what's going to happen, right? But you have to allow natural evolution to happen and be ready to respond. So now let's take a little kind of moment to settle into those three problems: the over-identifying, the extending your, trauma dynamics from childhood into the business, into the workplace, and the third one, this allowing the natural flow of life, denying the flow of life, and allowing yourself to digest it for a little moment before I bridge into the alternative to these things. Okay, so let's take a breath in, a little stretch, and okay. What's the alternative? The alternative to all these things is to allow yourself to grow and change with life as you integrate and let go of the previous stages of your, let's call it evolution, let's call it consciousness, okay? So we allow ourselves in this alternative, this healthier way of being, to see that we have achieved a certain state, and we would routinely look at how it's working still for me. Have my values changed over time? Because you're not the same person as you were when you were starting that project, right? So maybe your needs have changed by now. And as you've developed all these amazing things, or you've grown to some stage of mastery, you might be seeing, okay, I predicted these things to satisfy me in these areas of life and in those ways. But I'm seeing now that I'm here that I couldn't see, maybe this need wouldn't be met at this level of maybe that business, right? So I'm not being fulfilled in having a certain way of relating with these clients. Yes, they're great, they're satisfied, maybe they're thankful, I'm getting amazing testimonials and all that, but I would prefer to have a sort of different way of thinking clients. And how am I supposed to change, and okay, now I'm going to change my way of attracting people. Maybe I'm going to change my message to clients. I might change the way I communicate my services. And if you are still in a professional, in a workplace scenario, that might be, okay, I might try and see if I can change within the company. I don't have to give up this role and completely kick things aside and then just scrap things to, and then start from scratch. But you might just want to kind of redefine what you're doing. You might just want to talk to your managers and say, I want to redefine what I do. So I'm just feeling this is something that really invigorates me, and I feel like this is really where my energy is flowing. And when you're your own boss, then have that same conversation with yourself, okay? And in relationships, that could be, wow, okay, I've been spinning my wheels in overgiving, constantly worrying about my partner and just constantly over investing myself into his or her development. And like, I shouldn't care more than they do care, right? I'm great at being their coach, okay? I'm great at coaching in relationship, but let's be honest, that's not my role, right? So you get to revisit routinely where you are and change. And the sooner you do it and the sooner you make those small tweaks, the lesser the chance of the big crisis or the big disappointment to happen where, yeah, you would actually have to scrap things to pieces, to ground, and start over when you've grown so stagnant and you've clinged for so long to something. And this new way of showing up, this alternative, it's honoring your humanity, your needs, and is going to be healthier for your emotional and your physical health, because it's bypassing the trauma of having to reduce yourself to a function and exist in that function out of fear for an extended period of time. So you are able to unfold in your creativity, in your natural organic evolution, and thrive. So like I say, you're not a hammer, so don't act like one. Don't be a hammer. Be a human being, be a human woman, and allow yourself to unfold, allow yourself to respond to life cycles, to your own needs. And you see that when you do that, you actually grow, because you don't have to let these old parts of yourself completely go away. You learn from them, you integrate them into new state of consciousness. And if you want to go really deeply in that topic, I posted lately an episode, it was just the most recent one, about letting go and how we get to compost these things, digest these things into becoming bigger, seeing from a higher perspective. So I'll post a video about the ugly truth of letting go in the description of this video. You can go and find this. But if you want to get serious about your growth into your empowered, wise self as a woman, then I really encourage you to reach out to me and start a one-on-one mentorship with me, where you grow the trust into your inner ability to respond to these life changes, life cycles with confidence. And as always, I want for you to appreciate yourself for investing the time into listening to what I have to say, because that aligns you closer and closer to who you're meant to be, and growing that inner power to create the life on your terms. So Thank you for watching, and I wish you an amazing week and see you soon.